Good morning and welcome back to my kitchen. Something about waking up to a clean kitchen on a weekend day makes me want to get back in here and destroy it and make it all messy again. So I actually need to start thinking about ways to preserve all of the peppers and tomatoes from that last harvest that I just did. So I'm going to try out some recipes today. I actually think I'm just going to focus on the green tomatoes for right now. And I'm also going to make some pretzels because I did make this habanero beer mustard, and using up just one of the habanero peppers that I had from the garden. And I'm really excited. I've already tried it and I like it, surprisingly. If you're new here, I don't like spice, and I'm on a journey to start increasing my palate and add more spice into it. So habanero beer mustard feels like a good place to continue that journey. But yeah, like I said, it's only one habanero and I got 3 jars this size. So one habanero between the 3 jars. It's not that much, but I want to make some pretzel bites to be able to enjoy this over the next however many days. I mean, we've got a lot of mustard, but I'm sure we can go through it pretty quickly. So I'm gonna try to make some pretzel bites, and I found a green tomato enchilada sauce recipe that I want to try. I might just have to borrow the recipe for some inspiration because I don't have all of the green chilies and peppers that are in that recipe, but I do have some bell peppers, some jalapenos. I might try to just make something. I'm new to all of this. This is my first year gardening. This is my first year, obviously, preserving everything that comes out of the garden. So I've seen a lot of inspiration from people who use a recipe but kind of make it their own. I tend to stick to a recipe and that's it. And it turns out well and I'm happy with it. But this time today, I think I'm gonna try something new and try to stray from the recipe and make something up as I go. It's not that crazy. It's just swapping out a few different peppers. So I'm making it sound like it's something bigger than it is. But yeah, we'll try it out. So 2 new recipes to me today. Let's try them. All right, so I'm pulling up the recipes that I have and checking them out to figure out a game plan, because obviously the pretzel bites are going to be going in the oven, and I found the enchilada sauce. It's a roasted enchilada sauce. So I think what I'm going to do is start roasting the green tomatoes and jalapenos for the enchilada sauce. And while that's roasting, it says roast them at 425, check them at 15 minutes, and then if needed, roast another 10 or 15 minutes. So it could be a half hour. So in the time that those peppers and tomatoes are roasting, I can start on the dough for the pretzels. So I think I'll do that. I did pull out my active dry yeast. I keep this in the freezer because the last one that I bought, I didn't realize had to be kept in, a fridge or a freezer, and it died. So learned my lesson. And now I keep it in the freezer. So I did have to take that out and let it come to room temperature before I use it. So kind of just been enjoying my coffee while that happens. But I think I can start using that and make that dough while the peppers and tomatoes are roasting. Sounds like a good plan, but this is where I always get thrown off, is when I'm trying to do 2 different things and I don't plan it out right. So I'm kind of all over the place, but this should be easy enough. I forgot I also wanted to make French onion meatballs because I took some meat out and I have a lot of onions and those sound really good, but that might be getting too overzealous for today. So maybe we'll get there if we get there. But yeah, okay, so I'm gonna start with the roasted enchilada sauce. So let's see, I'm going to drizzle the bottom of a sheet pan, place the roasting ingredients, the tomatoes, chilies, onion, garlic. Roast until tender and caramelized. Yeah, and then they have to cool, so that works out well. Even if they're still, like, even if they're done while I'm still finishing up the dough, they'll be cooling while I get the pretzel bites in the oven. So sounds like a good plan. All right, let's do it. All right, so I have my tomatoes. I have about 4.5 pounds, and this is calling for 1 pound. So I'm gonna have to increase the amounts of everything else. So I'll grab a handful of jalapenos, a handful of the green peppers that I have, and maybe 4 onions, and lots of garlic. So I'll do that next. All right, so for the onions and garlic, I have 2 red onions and a white onion. Is it crazy to mix them? I don't know. I'm gonna try it. I don't see why not. I mean, I know there's gonna be like different onion flavors between the two, but I like red onion and I like white onion. I'm just gonna use all 3, mix them up a little bit, and then I'm gonna use this whole garlic clove. And I think I've seen people like just cut the top off and roast it like that. I think I'm gonna try that. All right, so I added an extra garlic clove just for good measure because I love garlic and wanted to make sure that flavor comes out. And put a little bit of olive oil on top of the garlic. I've seen people do that when they roast them like this, so I'm sure that'll help. But threw them in the oven at 425 for 15 minutes, and then we'll take a peek at them. Now let's start on the pretzels. All right, so I need 1.5 cups of milk between 105 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm gonna pop it in the microwave and get it up to that temperature, and then I will add the yeast in. It's a little too high, so we're gonna let it cool down. While I wait for my milk to cool down, I have to measure out my yeast. I need 0.25 ounces, which is apparently a packet. Back in the freezer. Those tomatoes and onions and garlic are already smelling really good. So in here I have a tablespoon of brown sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. You probably saw me put 1 teaspoon in, but I caught my mistake and added another one. All right, so that was the first 15 minutes. I put them in for another 10 because they smell really good, but they could use a little bit more roasting. Two more degrees and we'll be good. So I measured out my flour, so that's ready. This is 4.5 cups. So once I get this all in, I need to melt 2 tablespoons of butter, and we'll be mixing the butter and flour into this with our mixer. All right, so that was another 10 minutes on the tomatoes. I think I'm definitely gonna pull out the ones that I cut and maybe leave the ones that are whole in there a little bit longer. They smell great. Yeah, I'll leave the whole ones in a little bit longer. Well, I also didn't really account for the rise time of the dough after it's, all put together. So that'll be like 20 or 30 minutes to let it rise. So it's not going to be like quick this out of the oven and that in, but that's all right. I'm going quicker than I thought I would, so we're looking good. We're starting to get a little foamy. I don't know if it's taking longer because it was frozen, but we'll give it a little bit more time. Well, I just read the yeast jar, and it says if you open it to use it within 4 months, if you like refrigerate or freeze it. So definitely didn't get it 4 months ago. It might just be old. I always run into issues. I don't know. But I mean, they're pretzels, so they don't need to get like super puffy, right? I'm still gonna make it. I'm just gonna see what happens. Welcome to the kitchen of Mary. All right, so I'm gonna let that sit and rise for 20-30 minutes and let my peppers and tomatoes cool a little bit. All right, so I'm clearly not gonna be able to blend this all up in one batch. So I'm just gonna blend up as much as I can at once and then throw it all in a bowl and then just season everything together in the bowl so it's all the same. I have cumin, oregano, and a little bit of dried cilantro to season this with, and probably, salt and pepper, whatever. But that's all I've got. So let's hope it tastes good. I'm not kidding when I say the smallest amount of dried cilantro. So I'm adding that in here so it gets blended up with the last batch. Actually, I'm going to put all of the seasoning in this last batch, just so it gets ground up and mixed, and then I'll mix it in with the rest. So we're going cumin, actually hardly have any of that left either. Salsa season, and then oregano. All right, let's cross our fingers and hope that this tastes good. All right, here's the moment of truth. That's actually pretty good. It's not spicy, like at all. It tastes very fresh. That's good. I surprisingly taste cilantro, or maybe it's the oregano. It could use some like lightness, like lemon maybe, or lime, but I'm nervous to put that in here because it's not in the recipe. And I know I'm kind of making my own, but the recipe does call for honey because this originally was with tomatillos, and it said that the honey cut the tartness of the tomatillos. I'm not finding that the green tomatoes are super tart. I think it's pretty good. I mean, there's a whole heck of a lot of it. This is a 5.5 quart bowl, and it's almost up to the top. So we definitely have a lot of it. So I want to make sure that it's good when we go to eat it. I picture this going over like enchiladas, obviously, as an enchilada sauce, but also just on tacos or any kind of Mexican dish. I have that Taco Bell salsa verde, and I love that. And that's almost out. Let me see what that has in it. It does say lime juice. Maybe I'll put some in a bowl, put some lime juice in it, and see what it's like. Let's try that. Just a little. All right, I'll just put, I don't know, a little bit. It also, the recipe also said that you can, oh, that might have been too much. I can already smell it. The recipe said you can put water in it if you want it thinner, which that's like, I think that's a good consistency too with the lime. All right, let's do it. Oh, I like that a lot better. It's like a deep spoon. That's good. Okay. Now, how much do I put in this bowl? Let's put, I don't know, tell me when. When? Oh, that's so good. It's not as lemony as lime. It's not as limey as the one I mixed up in the smaller batch, but I think this is a lot better because it's not as like, it's not the first thing you taste. It's like, you know, lingering at the back of the palate. All right, I'm impressed. This is making me really happy. Okay, so I'm not gonna can this. I think what I'm gonna do is put it into, I don't have a lot of jars. So I was gonna say I'll put it in jars and put it in the freezer, but maybe I'll just put it into bags. Yeah, I don't really have a lot of Tupperware either. I'd love to get some like freezer containers, like, you know, those old like soup containers, things like that. I just don't have them. So I think I'll just put them into bags and throw them in the freezer, into like Ziploc bags. And we can just pull one out whenever we want to make a nice dish with it. I feel accomplished. I am happy that I was able to turn all of those bummer tomatoes that I wasn't sure what to do with, that weren't gonna get ripe before the frost comes, into a big batch of something delicious. And I didn't just follow a recipe to a T, I kind of made it my own. This is pretty cool. All right, let's check in on the pretzel dough. All right, well, I don't think it necessarily doubled, but I think, again, my yeast just might not be the most lively. So I'm just gonna work with it. We might just have some dense pretzels. It's kind of a bummer, but we'll see how they turn out anyway. I'm not gonna let this go to waste. It's worth a try to see if they still cook up nicely. So I have to get a pot of water and baking soda boiling, and then roll these out to plop them into boiling water. I've made bagels, so it seems like a similar thing where you let them boil in the water to get that like sticky bagel pretzel coating on the outside. So that's what we're gonna do. I have never been more confident in a statement. Do not follow my lead when it comes to bread. I want to get better at it. I really do. I cannot. I'm sorry that you just had to see that. And actually, I thought I was recording a lot longer than I was. You missed the whole beginning. I don't know. I want to get better at making bread and bread related things. So maybe that's my goal for the winter when I'm not focusing on the garden. Man, this is, I mean, look at this. They're not great. But anyway, like I said, we're gonna see this through, and I'm gonna see if these can be somewhat edible. So yeah, my water's almost boiling. Once that boils, we're just popping them in for about 30 seconds and then putting them onto a baking sheet. Egg wash, salt, pop them in the oven. So now we are going to coat them in the egg wash. And And I don't have coarse salt, but I'm actually just going to use what's inside of this salt grinder because that's a thicker salt. So I'm going to sprinkle that on top. Okay, so the pretzels look like pretzels. They might not taste the best, but the important thing is that they are a vessel for the mustard. So if it serves that purpose, wait for me, wait for me, wait for me.
You've already tried it.
So, okay, ready?
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers. Very good.
The pretzel's actually good.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Oh, there's the heat. All right, well, I'm gonna consider today a success, even though, yeah, no, I'm just gonna consider it a success. I got lots of pretzel bites, lots of enchilada sauce, and more experience under my belt to make pretzels better the next time. But they actually are, I'm surprised. Like I don't know. They're not like as dense as I thought they would maybe be. So yeah, thanks for sticking around with this experimental kitchen day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Toodles.